Pushkin.
This series includes content that may not be suitable for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Previously on Valley of Shadows.
Major players were never touched by Deputy Ingalls. Nothing ever happened to them. That raised a red flag to me.
I went up to a guy talking Tom Hinkle to purchase some methamphetamine. When I went to the other room, I've heard, "How's it going, Ingalls?" Tom said, and Ingalls goes, "Thanks for the bag of rye."
Your affiant believes that Deputy Ingalls and other unidentified individuals murdered Deputy Aujay to prevent him from arresting them or exposing their criminal activity.
A homicide captain saying, "Detective, do not find out if this guy's guilty or innocent." Who does that?
And they said, "Hey, Larry, we're ordered to go out here and get everything you got in the case."
You can't beat a morning like this. Just sit here and watch that sun come up between the canyon right there. It's just beautiful.
Retired narcotics detective Darren Hager works sunup to sundown at his ranch in rural California. Every morning, he fuels up on black coffee, puts on his spurs, and heads out to his pastures. He tends his herd of Angus cows and then drives around servicing other cattle ranches in the area. His days are fairly routine, except when we show up.
I will straight up hug a cow if it gets close enough.
Oh, they're stepping back. They're sizing us up.
I thought 25 years of being a vegetarian would earn me some love with the cows, but apparently not. Hager lets us tag along with him anyway.
So this alfalfa is supposedly sweeter than grass and stuff. That's why they like it. I mean, they got plenty of grass, but they just like this stuff.
You're giving them a special treat.
Yeah, they're a little spoiled.
The cows keep their distance, ogling us with their big, glassy eyes. So Hager teaches us cattle calling 101.
I talk cow.
Okay, well, how do you talk cow?
I got a buddy, he's a stuntman in the movies. On his herd, he sings, "Mama, don't let your babies grow up to be cowboys."
Okay,
and
you want to do it?
His animals come. No, I don't.
Mamas, don't let your babies grow up to be cowboys.
Yeah, so his herd comes running when he sings that, and he's a goofball anyways.
Oh, God.
That didn't work on them.
They're all good try.
So then mine, I just move like, moo.
Hi, buddies.
We gotta take her.
Hager always wanted to be a cop or a cowboy. So when his career in law enforcement ended in 2003, he pivoted.
Met some cowboys here, and they got me started in cowboy and got a job at the home ranch. Worked there for a year, learned a lot. And now I raise my own cattle and horses.
It was a steep learning curve with plenty of setbacks. But when Hager gets knocked down, he gets back up on that horse. It's something he had to do a lot while working at the LA County Sheriff's Department. Hager says they tried to hamstring the DEA's narcotics sting, aka Operation Silent Thunder, and they set up all kinds of roadblocks in their Aujay investigation.
We knew from day one the department was fighting us on everything on this. They didn't want us opening the right door to get this case solved.
Early on, the DEA asked the Sheriff's Department to assign a homicide detective to their task force to help field all the Aujay tips they were getting. When the LASD said no, Hager found a workaround. He unofficially teamed up with homicide detective Larry Brandenburg. They had a good thing going, until Brandenburg told his captain that he was looking into Deputy Rick Ingalls as a potential suspect in Aujay's murder. And Brandenburg's investigation got shut down. Hager wasn't too surprised when it happened.
It just fit hand in hand with everything we knew. Everything we did with the department regarding Aujay was getting shut down.
Without Brandenburg, Hager finds himself at a crossroads.
I just said, I got to get out. This is stupid. What am I doing? But I've never quit anything in my life, and I felt I was quitting Aujay if I left the case, because when you sit there and you think about a fellow deputy who's your family, who has a little child, that's the hardest part about the whole thing. Poor Chloe, she didn't have a dad anymore, and why was that? Well, that's my job as a cop, to help people like that. That's why we all take the oath. We're not out there just taking bad guys to jail. We're taking bad guys to jail to help an innocent person out. That's the whole objective of this. I had a choice. Career survival, walk away, or do I put myself aside and I do it for Jon? And I went with Jon.
So Hager gets back in the saddle and helps Operation Silent Thunder level up with wiretaps, federal search warrants, and the biggest drug raid the Antelope Valley had ever seen. I'm Haley Fox.
I'm Betsy Shepard, and this is Valley of Shadows. Episode 6, The Big Takedown. Up until this point, we've mostly talked about Operation Silent Thunder as it relates to the Aujay case. But the task force went far beyond that. Its aim was to take down 6 major drug trafficking organizations in the Antelope Valley.
I really had no idea what was going on in Antelope Valley. Hadn't freaking really heard of Antelope Valley.
This is DEA Special Agent Kent Bailey talking on the phone with Haley.
I've never been up to Antelope Valley. Never had a desire to go up to Antelope Valley.
What were your first impressions, like, once you start going out there?
What a shithole.
What a shithole. Kent Bailey's opinion of the Antelope Valley did not improve with time, and he'd get his fill of it, thanks to Darren Hager, who roped him into all of this when he requested DEA assistance.
Kent would go, you need a fuel-air explosion over the whole Antelope Valley, and this problem would be solved, because it was that bad.
Sure enough.
What's your answer to the Antelope Valley? I said a fuel-air explosion.
It sounds callous, but Bailey is referencing an apocalyptic 90s movie.
There's the movie Outbreak with Dustin Hoffman in it.
Outbreak is about a deadly virus, and the U.S. government's plan to contain it by bombing the site of the outbreak.
From the heart of a small California town.
Damn it, Sam, I want to save these people, same as you.
To the inner circle of power. The greatest medical crisis of all time.
We can't stop him.
Begins.
Bailey is being hyperbolic to convey how bad things were in the Antelope Valley, with its high-speed biker meth, crime, and corruption. But when Operation Silent Thunder gets going, Hager and Bailey try to clean up the place with a more targeted approach.
We would go out on surveillance, driving around, taking pictures of locations, calling up Aero Bureau, doing flybys, doing aerial photos. A lot of it was just groundwork. It was building the information up for arrest.
So we did a lot of intel gathering, so to speak, to try to find out a suspect list of who we could go to, find out the weakest link in that chain, and then start targeting them to work back up to the top.
They worked their way up the food chain of the area's narcotic cells, from dealers to cooks, go-betweens, and eventually the top dogs. Over time, their suspect list grows into the triple digits. Bailey says Operation Silent Thunder was one of the biggest projects he ever worked on, and he was known in the LA field office for getting things done. His boss at the DEA even had a nickname for him.
She used to call me her Terminator, so I was one of her case makers.
And what does she mean by case maker?
Well, guy who's able to put complex cases together.
So Hager has found a good match in Bailey, given how complex the case is, and all the pushback he's getting from the sheriff's department.
It was very nerve-wracking because the department was so anti-solving this case or looking into this case. It took a big toll on me.
Hager starts to piece together why it is, he thinks, The department is giving them so much shit. It happens while he's surveilling key players in the drug scene.
We would put traces on the numbers, the telephone numbers, and see what numbers we're calling them. Half of the numbers, probably more than that, there was a lot, came back to sheriff stations off of bad guys' telephones.
Hager says that multiple sheriff's deputies were calling multiple targets of their narcotics investigation. He has a hard time making sense of what's going on.
In my mind, these are all my buddies. They're not dirty. I worked with them. We've had barbecues together. These are good people. There's no way any of this is true. So at the start, I was a non-believer until you got knee-deep into what was going on, and then you get the true information about it.
When they get knee-deep into it, they figure out that the local cops are leaking information to friends on the other side of the law and alerting them to impending raids.
We'd go to kick down a door, and the suspects were already waiting for us. They were on the phone with the sheriff's department, being notified we were going to kick the door as we kicked the door. I mean, that's how dangerous it got.
Hager is rattled. He worries that during the next raid, he might walk into a shootout, because the more word spreads about the task force, the more enemies he racks up. And then this threat of violence shows up at his doorstep. He wakes up in the middle of the night to the sound of a car pulling up. He gets up, looks out the window, and sees a guy approaching his house.
And the guy put a mask on, and he knocked on the door and ran back behind the pillar and stood there, and I was watching the whole thing from upstairs. And he did this like 3 or 4 times, and something told me, don't go open the door, don't confront him.
It's an unnerving experience, especially given the violence of the local drug trade and what Hager's been uncovering in Operation Silent Thunder.
With the things that we already knew and the bodies that had disappeared in the case that's going on, I just figured somebody didn't want me in the picture anymore to investigate whatever I was investigating.
After the masked man incident, Hager moves out of his house and decamps to the DEA safe house, where he begins living full-time. He isn't scared off the case, but he is feeling its strain. The task force has consumed his whole life. He's exhausted. He's constantly having to look over his shoulder. And still, he can't stop thinking about Jon Aujay.
I sat there numerous times, alone in the middle of the night, on surveillance. I shouldn't have been out there. I did it on my own. Everyone else was in bed. But I wanted to solve the case, and I just said, Jon, just talk to me. Where the hell are you? What happened?
Aujay never talked back. But the case does take a turn when Operation Silent Thunder wiretaps go live.
They are not easy to get. You have to show that there was no other investigative means that would enable you to achieve your goals. And then you have to show that that guy's using this telephone number for criminal activity.
Agent Bailey and Deputy Hager have collected mounds of evidence on key players in the meth scene, including the godlike Tom Hinkle. The task force uses it to establish probable cause to apply for federal wiretaps. When the team gets the green light, information pours out onto the wires. Bailey describes one of these taps as their Jerry Springer wire because there was so much action on it. And the information proves valuable when they raid a storage unit containing explosives, firearms, and some stolen sheriff's gear.
We found their weapon stash. And I think it ended up being one of the largest weapon seizures that ATF made at the time. Certainly one of the largest ones up at Antelope Valley.
Hager says that wiretaps can be a case-making law enforcement tool.
I can go out and interview a suspect or an informant, victim, or whatever, and a lot of times they tell you what a cop wants to hear, trying to get you to go away. But when you're on a wiretap, you're hearing a conversation between two people that don't think cops are involved. So you're getting the truth.
But first, Hager and company have to crack the code. Because when it comes to drugs, there's a lot of sideways talk.
It was like, Are the enchiladas ready? That was your gram of meth. Or it was a burrito for an ounce of meth. We're like, dude, it's hungry, like constantly. These are things we had to learn, you know. And tweakers, I don't know if you've ever met a tweaker. They're literally 100 miles an hour, so their phone is ringing off the hook. Phone call, phone call, phone call, phone call.
And one of the names that keeps surfacing on these phone calls is Rick Engels, a.k.a. Deputy Bigfoot.
The Silent Thunder Task Force is lying in wait, listening in on their phone taps, when a familiar name comes back on their radar. Deputy Rick Engels.
They call him Rick. You know, Rick is doing this, or Engels is going to be pissed. And I mean, it's just more of a, like you're talking about another friend in the group or another business partner type of thing. It really pushed me to the edge where I was saying, it's not on the up and up.
So Hager's DEA counterpart, Agent Kent Bailey, goes back to the sheriff's department and asks a second time for a homicide detective to work directly with the task force. Someone to follow up in real time with all their Aujay leads and look into Rick Engels.
I begged for the homicide guys to work side by side. We'll be doing the dope case, you do the homicide stuff.
The department relents and appoints Detective Joe Holmes for the job.
He looked like the fucking guy from Dragnet.
Bailey says Holmes had a crew cut and a by-the-books kind of vibe. Just like Joe Friday, the lead detective on the 50s TV show Dragnet.
Just the facts, ma'am. Just the facts.
Detective Holmes is the guy who shows up at Brandenburg's doorstep to retrieve the Aujay case file. He then meets with Hager and Bailey to get up to speed on their investigation.
We sat in the safe house and said, this is what we have. We don't know where to go with it. You guys took Larry off of it. We want you to come full bore. Gave it to Joe Holmes, and he says, you guys got a homicide in your hands.
Yeah, that was the first thing he said is, well, it looks like you guys got a murder here.
He goes, if Engels is dirty, I don't care if he's wearing a badge or not, I'll take him to jail. We're like, beautiful. That's all we asked for.
Holmes has been at the LASD for 25 years at this point, and his colleagues describe him as the gold standard of homicide cops. Almost as soon as he's assigned to the homicide case, Holmes' name surfaces on the wires. While Hager's listening in on Tom Hinkle's phone calls, he hears Methaclaus talking with a guy named Jeff Sherry, a lifelong criminal in the Pear Blossom area. The two are discussing the new homicide detective assigned to the Aujay case.
Jeff says Holmes is a nice guy, and then Hinkle says, yeah, I already put a handle on him. I named him Joe Friday.
Joe Friday from Dragnet.
And they're laughing about it, stuff like that. So to me, there's some type of cordial relationship between the two of them that Hinkle's not worried about anything from Joe Holmes.
Hager says that on the wiretaps, Hinkle didn't sound concerned about Detective Holmes. Hager's listening to recordings of the wiretaps as a reference. He won't let us hear the tapes, given the privacy restrictions around them, but he offers to describe the conversations in broad strokes.
Jeff Sherry wants to know how long they're going to leave this thing open, referring to the investigation, and Tom's response is, well, it's more than that. And Jeff is amazed that something made it all the way to the district attorney's office. And Tom agrees, and they're both admitting that something got very close when it made it to the district attorney's office regarding the investigation.
Could it be the Brandenburg affidavit?
That's what my feeling is, because Larry Brandenburg did take it to a DA for authorization that there was enough evidence to go forward with it.
Remember, Larry Brandenburg wrote up a search warrant asking to track Deputy Rick Engel's vehicle and review his phone and financial records. Then he took it to a district attorney. Hager thinks that's what Jeff Sherry is talking about, that the Aujay investigation was getting close. And he feels pretty certain that Sherry knows what happened to Jon Aujay, because Sherry's closely tied in with Hinkle. His sister's Hinkle's longtime girlfriend, and for a while, they all lived under the same roof. Plus, Sherry's a known entity in the area.
If something happened in the Pear Blossom area, Jeff Sherry's name was in it. His name always came up.
Jeff Sherry's rap sheet is truly one of the longest I've ever seen. Like the criminal version of one of those never-ending CVS receipts. There's numerous felonies, mostly drug crimes. And one of the arrests on his record was made by Darren Hager, back when he was still a rookie deputy.
That was my first narcotic arrest, and I didn't deal with him ever again until the Aujay case, and he popped back up into my life.
Sherry's voice pops up on the wires, talking to Tom Hinkle about the Aujay case. And during this conversation, Hinkle brings up another murder.
He goes, yeah, look at that Standish case.
Lynn Standish was the woman who died from a bomb explosion in Pear Blossom. There were tire tracks leading from the murder scene directly to Hinkle's home. Deputy Bigfoot Angles arrived at the scene and spoke to Hinkle alone just before the homicide detective questioned him. And that homicide detective was none other than Joe Friday, a.k.a. Joe Holmes. So the Aujay case is the second murder case in which Holmes crosses paths with Rick Engels and Tom Hinkle. And the phone call between Hinkle and Sherry discusses Holmes in the context of these two cases.
Jeff Sherry said, yeah, they're trying to create something. And for some reason, Tom goes, that's not even dead and stinking yet, which is a very odd statement. I mean, dead and stinking, and here we are in a homicide investigation. Sounds like they know that there's a dead body somewhere or someone hasn't found it.
Hager is convinced Sherry knows something about Aujay's murder, and he thinks Sherry's a weak link in Hinkle's operation, someone he might be able to flip into an informant.
Because he's got such a lengthy history that you might be able to turn him, because he doesn't want to go, with the third strike that was back then. He doesn't want to go to prison for the rest of his life. So he was important to talk to.
So Hager keeps surveilling the phone lines, unnoticed, trying to decode the conversations, record a confession, or at least collect as much dirt as possible before his cover's blown. But then another call comes into Hinkle's, and Hager overhears some information he can't just sit on, because it seems Jeff Sherry's life is in danger. It starts when Hinkle gets a call from a friend who tells him that Jeff Sherry is snitching.
They're worried that Jeff Sherry wrote an affidavit of some sort about Rick Engel's involvement with Tom Hinkle.
The caller had heard a rumor that Sherry was giving up Engels and Hinkle.
Now we're hearing this conversation, how Tom's worried about, well, can you get that? I need to know what it says.
Hinkle wants to see this affidavit. Hager and Bailey know of no such document. Nonetheless, the rumor causes quite the stir. According to a summary of the conversation, Hinkle asks what's wrong with Sherry, to which his friend replies, I don't know. Doesn't he know what Engels will do?
Immediately after we heard it on the phone call, I got a call from parole saying that Rick Engels is looking for Jeff Sherry with a couple other deputies.
Shortly after Sherry is accused of ratting, Engels allegedly calls Sherry's parole officer asking for his whereabouts. Then he and a posse of deputies start searching for him. So when Hager hears that Engels and company are out hunting for Sherry, he assumes the worst. That the deputy is trying to put an end to Sherry's snitching permanently. Hager springs into action to make sure Jeff Sherry doesn't disappear.
So I get a hold of Bailey. I go, we got to get him. We got to get him now or else.
So Hager guns it to Sherry's home. What comes next is uncorroborated.
And I park the car, I get out, walk by the apartment, and there's Jeff Sherry right on the porch, right in front of his door.
Hager's first on scene, but he needs backup, so he calls into the nearest sheriff's station.
I go, look, this guy's a runner, he's a fighter, and then he's probably armed, and I need someone good. He goes, all right, I'll send you some deputies. I go, thanks.
One of the deputies that shows up is a friend of Engel's.
He goes, go back to your car, we'll handle this. I said, no, you're going to obey my orders, and I'm going to tell you how to handle this because I'm the on-scene commander right now. He goes, we're not doing anything until you leave. I'm like, this is going to get ugly.
It's a tense standoff. And there's a lot of subtext buried within this interaction. By this point, Hager is persona non grata in these parts, because over the course of Operation Silent Thunder, the task force has documented questionable behavior from a number of deputies, including Rick Engels. As word leaks out about what Hager and the feds have discovered, the local cops turn on him.
I didn't have a single friend anymore. Not a single deputy would talk to me. Nobody. Because they all thought I was a rat. Everyone's heard of the Code of Silence. It does exist. It's not written down. No one could ever prove it. But this case right here just shows 100% that there is a Code of Silence. There's certain deputies or law enforcement that say, hey, if you're guilty of especially murder and drug dealing and stuff like that, you shouldn't be carrying the badge. So you're fair game just like every other bad guy that's doing it. So that's the way I feel, and some cops feel that way, and some cops turn a blind eye because they don't want to be a snitch.
Hager and Sherry have little in common. But at this particular moment in time, they find themselves in a similar situation. They're both in hot water because of what they know. In an escalating battle of wills, Hager wins the standoff, and he takes Jeff Sherry into custody.
My eyes, we saved his life because I really think deputies are going to kill him. You know, it was just, I've never seen anything like it.
And Hager finally gets his chance to question Sherry about the Aujay case.
Just tell me what you know about Tom and who he's associated with out in Parablossom and things like that. They call him God.
They call him God, Sherry says.
Once Jeff Sherry's in custody, Detective Hager interviews him. He asks him about Tom Hinkle.
And there's rumors about who he's associated with, right?
That's a young Hager. His voice was less seasoned back in 2001.
Different people. Yeah, and who's that? Engels. Rick Engels. Where's Rick Engels? Sheriff.
Sherry says Tom Hinkle associates with Rick Engels, the sheriff. Engels was actually the resident deputy of the area, but given his power over the region, many view him as the sheriff. Sherry says that Tom Hinkle and Deputy Engels were spotted all over Parablossom hanging with known meth manufacturers, and that they would steal chemicals from rival meth gangs and then use it to cook their dope.
And about this missing deputy, Tom told you a few different stories about it. What was the first story he told me? He said an investigation because he had kicked at it. And him and he was.
He said he was under investigation because they think that him and Engels.
This deputy was out jogging, running, down under laps. They killed the deputy.
The deputy was out jogging, running, and found one of their labs, and they, killed the deputy.
He said a little smile on his face and shit.
He said it with a little smile on his face and shit.
God would do anything like that in her.
And he goes, I wouldn't do anything like that, would I? That's as far as Sherry is willing to go. But he may have known a lot more about what happened to Aujay. Because years later, a woman we'll call Jane came forward to report a disturbing interaction she had with a neighbor in the Parablossom area.
Used to call him Scary Jeff Sherry.
Jane says they used to hang out occasionally. And one night, they were in her garage when out of nowhere, Sherry starts in on the missing deputy.
He started carrying on about how he knew about this cop that disappeared. As soon as he told me the story, my whole body turned into chills.
Then she says, Sherry described where the missing cop was buried.
He described with his hands in the air, making a big triangle, that the cop is buried on this guy's property, the biggest A-frame house there is, that this cop was buried under this A-frame house.
And it just so happens that a big A-frame house is the kind of house Tom Hinkle lived in.
And after he left, I was in tears because I believed him, and I still do.
Jane immediately wrote down what she heard and then submitted a tip to the FBI. We don't know if they investigated the lead because, again, they can neither confirm nor deny the existence of an investigation. But in her message, Jane begs the FBI for some reassurance that her fears are misplaced. She says, please tell me this guy is full of crap. It's not a real story. I'm hoping your reply will be. When Jeff Sherry's in custody, he stops short of giving Hager proof of Hinkle and Engel's involvement in Aujay's disappearance. So the task force sits tight and continues to listen in on Tom Hinkle's wire, which is a springboard for Hager and Bailey's wider narco investigation.
Our case was building stronger and stronger every single day. We were making arrests. We were getting our seizures. Our case was, 100% on.
Operation Silent Thunder spans 18 months. Involves long days of building probable cause, monitoring wiretaps, and serving search warrants. The task force is making sporadic arrests, doing surveillance. But it's all culminating in a massive takedown that will cause ripple effects across the Antelope Valley. The takedown starts in the early morning hours of August 21st, 2001. More than 200 law enforcement officers from at least 6 different agencies are fanning out across the Antelope Valley and beyond. They're about to raid 23 locations with known associations to the meth trade. The targets include labs and dealers' houses. The plan is to hit them all at once so the targets don't have time to tip each other off.
So we rolled out with 23 different search warrant teams.
Bailey, the Terminator.
DEA, FBI, SWAT, and then simultaneously hit these doors across the valley.
Hager and Bailey were posted up at the command center, coordinating efforts from a central location and getting updates from agents in the field.
The search warrants were done at the crack of dawn, and, we finished until we collapsed into bed that night and then got back up in the morning.
There were mass arrests, many with ties to biker gangs like the Vagos and white supremacist groups like Supreme White Power, who reportedly funded their organization through their aggressive narcotics trade. These meth operations had tentacles that crossed state lines. Many were flying below the radar, operating under the guise of legitimate businesses. One dealer was shipping meth inside custom-made car parts that he manufactured himself. The task force had no idea how the dealer was moving his meth. But after they seized some metal rods during the big bust, Hager makes the discovery.
It just looks like a solid piece of aluminum. I go, there's something with this. Took him to the hospital, had him x-rayed, and they go, this looks kind of hollow.
The hollow rod is part of a drive shaft. So Hager takes it to a mechanic to give it a look.
So they took pliers and grabbed on stuff, and they're twisting, and all of a sudden, where those 2 rings are, it moved. Pried it off, full of Ziploc freezer bags with dope. We only took 2 of those, and the house was filled with them. Who knows what we missed?
The cells were sophisticated and good at covering their tracks. At a press conference, Sheriff Lee Baca, who was head of the LASD at the time, referred to those arrested in the Operation Silent Thunder sting as the godfathers of meth.
We put a big hurt into what we called the untouchables. We put a big scare into them. We took a lot of them into custody. We dismantled that organization for a long time.
And one of the godfathers of meth is God himself, Tom Hinkle. After the task force extracted what they could from Hinkle's phone line, they decided it was time to raid his compound, the A-frame, the house on the hill. There's a lot of prep that needs to be done for a raid of this kind. The task force assigns a surveillance team to track Rick Engels. They want to keep an eye on him, make sure he doesn't interfere when they're serving this high-risk search warrant. The task force is on edge because Tom Hinkle had said that if law enforcement came for him, he'd go down shooting. The unit in charge of surveilling and securing Hinkle's home during the raid was the Special Enforcement Bureau, the unit Aujay belonged to.
They obviously wanted to do that because Hinkle was, one of the number one names being thrown around with Aujay's disappearance.
So one morning, nearly 3 years after Aujay disappeared, the task force puts their plans into motion. They post up around Hinkle's home and wait until he gets into his car to head down his long dirt driveway. Then the team moves in to arrest him. Camouflage shooters emerge from the brush. A helicopter swoops in. Deputy Bigfoot Engels even races onto the scene as soon as he hears about the raid. But he doesn't get out of his car. He just lurks on the perimeter of the property before driving down the road to his house. Officers on the scene uncover all sorts of things tucked away in unlikely places. There's nearly $2,000 in cash hidden inside a stereo speaker. There's a police scanner, a pager, sandwich baggies full of what appears to be marijuana. And there's a rifle and ammunition stashed inside an ice cream truck parked on the property. The task force only finds one small baggie of meth, though. Maybe Hinkle's stock was low because the task force had already busted his main supplier. But Hager thinks that law enforcement just missed Hinkle's stash.
When we took down Hinkle's house, we knew there was an underground bunker, but we never found it. Could not find that bunker, but I know exactly where it is.
At least Hager thinks he does. Just like those meth-filled car parts, he thinks Hinkle's bunker was hiding in plain sight, and theorizes Hinkle found a low-tech way to conceal his stash.
There was a bunch of broken toilets around the whole thing. So when you do an air surveillance with heat infrared, the reflection off the ceramic, you don't get any heat out of it. Because we had NASA and the Air Force Base giving us things like that, where they can fly over and see voids in the ground with their technology. But with the ceramic toilets, you don't get to see that.
So they don't find much meth, but the task force gets what they've come for: Tom Hinkle. The task force arrests him, along with nearly 300 others involved in the area's meth trade. It shuts down 16 labs and confiscates weapons and explosives. It seizes more than $2 million worth of drugs, the equivalent of nearly $4 million today, and enough chemicals to make 370 pounds of finished methamphetamine.
We took down 5 out of 6 cells that nobody else could. These are names that I knew for 15 years that nobody could get to jail, and we took them all to jail federally.
A local news outlet called Operation Silent Thunder the biggest sting in the history of the Valley. But one of the things Hager's most proud of is his role in building cases against people he believes were involved in Jon Aujay's disappearance. After the task force takes Tom Hinkle into custody, DEA agent Kent Bailey asks him point blank, "What do you know about the missing deputy Jon Aujay?" Hinkle replies, quote, "I'll have to take that one with me to the grave," end quote. But law enforcement has ways of getting people to open up, especially when they're in custody and staring down federal jail time.
Mr. Hinkle, you want to give me your full name?
Thomas Dean Hinkle.
And your birthday?
1/24/46.
Mr. Hinkle, before we got on tape, I told you that anything you say to me will not be used in a court of law against you, okay? Understand? You have to speak because the tape doesn't understand now.
Investigators finally get a chance to hear what Tom Hinkle has to say.
Yep, Sherry made a statement to the police that myself and Rick Engels knew something about that deputy that was missing.
That's next time on Valley of Shadows.
I looked him straight in the eyes, and I said, Tom, you got anything to say?
We asked him what he knows about Deputy Ingalls, his knowledge of the disappearance of the deputy, the whole 9 yards.
We're talking with Deputy Rick Ingalls.
Silent Thunder was also investigating for killing Jon Aujay, based upon some rumors that tweeters had spread around.
We were in competition to see who could be more corrupt than the other. I mean, I'd like to say LAPD won, but when I look back on it now, I think we bested them.
If you have any information or tips related to the disappearance of Jon Aujay, please call 213-262-9889 or email shadows@pushkin.fm. Valley of Shadows is reported, written, and produced by us, Betsy Shepard and Haley Fox. Our editor is Diane Hodson. Our executive producers are Jacob Smith and Alexandra Garreton. Original music by Jake Gorski, Ray Lynch, Mike Jursich, and Hayden Gardner. Sound design by Jake Gorski. Fact-checking by Annika Robbins. Additional production support by Sonia Gerwit. And our show art was designed by Sean Carney and Betsy Shepard. Special thanks to Nick White for the show art photo. Valley of Shadows is a production of Pushkin Industries. To find more Pushkin podcasts, listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. From Type 2 Fun, we're Betsy and Haley. See you next week. Subscribe to Pushkin Plus to hear the entire season of Valley of Shadows ad-free starting January 12th. You'll also get bonus episodes, full audiobooks, and early ad-free listening from your favorite Pushkin hosts and authors. Find Pushkin Plus on the Valley of Shadows show page on Apple Podcasts or at pushkin.fm/plus. Thanks for your support.